Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adedugba. The top stories of this hour. Nigeria's defense chief accuses protesters flying Russian flag of treason. Court nullifies sale of a national carrier to Ethiopian Airlines. Somali's protest deadly Al-Shabaab attack. And details shortly. The news begins with updates on the End Bad Governors protests, where Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Mustapha says those flying the Russian flag in Nigeria have committed a treasonable offense. And speaking after an emergency security meeting with President Bola Tinubu at Aso Rock, Mustapha vowed that the law would catch up with such people. Protesters in parts of the country were seen marching on the streets, carrying Russian flags and chanting slogans. Meanwhile, the Russian embassy in Nigeria has denied any involvement with the group of protesters. The embassy, in a statement, emphasized that Russia does not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries, including Nigeria, and protesters' actions do not reflect any official Russian government's policy or position. Meanwhile, a Nigerian tailor simply identified as Ahmed was arrested in Kano on Monday after 7 Russian flags were found on him. False Public Relations Officer Olumoyiwa Adejobi, who made this known on the police media WhatsApp platform, said Ahmed Taylor was arrested with 7 Russian flags in the state. Adejobi said Ahmed Taylor is one of the sponsors of the treasonable felony of flying Russian flags and calling for anarchy in Kano and Nigeria at large. Nigerian authorities have raised security concerns after some End Bad Governors protesters in the north were seen in a viral photo and videos flying the Russian flag, calling on the Russian government to come and help them. Over the weekend, photos of some of the protesters waving the Russian flag made the rounds on social media. The Kaduna state government has imposed a 24-hour curfew on Kaduna and Zaria metropolitan cities with immediate effect. The decision was taken after an emergency security council meeting presided by Governor Uba Sani to review the security situation in the state. According to a statement by the Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arawan, the reason for the curfew is that the ongoing process has been hijacked by criminal elements who have resorted to looting shops, destruction of private and public property in the state. The statement warns citizens to remain indoors while security forces continue to work to maintain safety and order. Meanwhile, the protest took another dimension in Zamfara state as protesters were seen today with the Russian flag. In the meantime, business activities are on standstill now in many areas within the Jos Bukuru metropolis following the 24-hour curfew imposed on the metropolis by Governor Caleb Mofung amid the ongoing nationwide protests. According to a press statement signed by his director of press, Giyang Berry, the curfew became necessary to forestall further breakdown of law and order in the state. News Central's Chizoba Anyanwe quotes the governor as warning those planning to unleash further terror on innocent citizens to desist immediately or face the full wrath of the law. Activities have returned to normal in Lagos as the End Bad Governors protest enters its 5th day at Gani Fawayimi Park in Ojota. Now, for 3 days, most Lagosians stayed away from their workplaces and business due to fear. Our correspondent, Adeshawa Odushoga, joins us now for updates. Adeshawa, good evening. Glad to have you join me. Okay, would have our correspondent, Adeshawa Odushoga, join us in the course of the news bulletin. And now let's move to another news item. Precious Orochi, a rights activist whose video has been trending since its debut Thursday on News Central TV, following the first day of the hashtag End Bad Governors protest in Lagos, has come out to explain her outburst and reason for labeling the vice president as an idiot during an interview with our special correspondent on investigative journalism, and that's Marshal Anthony Onoye. You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. Nigeria has witnessed 4 days of intense protests as citizens demand an end to bad governance and the crippling hunger crisis. From the streets of Lagos to cities of the north, the people's cry for change echoed loud and clear. News Central's Adeshewa Odushoga takes us through the journey 4 days on so far.
Has been ablaze with protests as citizens demand an end to bad governance amid a skyrocketing cost of living crisis. From the 1st of August, the country witnessed a wave of demonstrations that swept across major cities, leaving a trail of chaos and uncertainty. On the first day, protesters took to the street in Lagos, Edo, Delta, Rivers, Kano, Borno, Bauchi, Gombe, Kaduna, and Katsina State. The absence of Eastern State was notable, but the message was clear. Nigerians have had enough of poor leadership. The protest recorded a level of violence, particularly in the northern parts of the country, especially in Kano, Kaduna, and Borno, forcing the state governments to declare curfew.
We are scared of weaponizing the protest, just as it was weaponized in the past. There are indices that it may be weaponized.
Don't you want to go into the place?
We cannot go inside because we know that as yesterday the police said bomb was planted somewhere. If we must go in, the CP will have to be there with us till we finish, so that when we die, we all die together.
It's not us that vote to bring the power. So the people who voted to bring the power, they should not do the protest. Enough is enough. The Igbos are not joining them.
The Borno State government has imposed indefinite curfew in Borno State in the light of the security challenges we are facing in the state. As we are aware, this morning, some people came out to protest in the street. And on the eve of this protest, the Boko Haram attacked a village called Malari in Konduga local government, where 16 people lost their lives and over 20 people were seriously injured.
On the second day, protests continued, especially in Lagos and Abuja, as well as major states of the Federation aside. A few states, however, remain calm, with most of them in the eastern parts of the country. Abuja, the federal capital, recorded a low turnout at the designated location following a feud between protesters and the police force, who fired tear gas to disperse the crowd.
Okay, so my name is Onyo Uchi Odikanwa. I have my comrades here with me, Emmanuel and Michael. We have faith, all of us are here to represent the Free Protesters Group of Nigeria. What is our position? We are here for an objective cause, a cause for all Nigerians. And everyone is at home watching us. This is my brother Uwem. We're all here for one Nigeria, for a cause that will benefit all of us. Now, what are we asking for? The government is asking us to endure. They're asking us to endure. The government is asking us to endure, and they're not enduring. How can a minister be driving with 10 cars and you're asking me to buy fuel at 1,000 naira? How will you spend billions to build a house for only one man and millions are homeless?
Following records of violence, the Christian Association of Nigeria and the Sultan of Sokoto called for calm. Kano, however, relaxed its curfew for Jumat prayers, a brief respite from the chaos. Despite the warnings, protesters persisted on the third day but recorded fewer turnouts in Lagos and Abuja. However, Jos witnessed large turnouts with demonstrators demanding an end to bad governance and hunger. The movement showed no signs of dying out.
In one day you came into power, May 29th, 2023. In one day you said
fuel subsidy gone. And from that day, Nigerians started bleeding in one day. So right now, we are on the street. This is the third day. You don't have to wait, Daddy Tinubu. You don't have to wait for 10 days. Since in one day you said fuel subsidy gone, and Nigerians started bleeding. We were buying fuel for 200 naira before you came into power, and now.
Well, let's still connect with our correspondents, and that's Adeshewa Odushoga, to feel the pulse of the people as regards the End Bad Governance protest. Adeshewa, what are the streets like, and what's the size of people out there on the street? Are they still protesting?
All right, Adebola, thank you for having me. So the businesses are pretty much returned to the street of Lagos, and it's just business as usual. Whilst the protest is still, ongoing in some parts of Lagos, especially in Ojota, the designated location for the protest since the first day. Businesses have since reopened today, the 5th day of the protest, and then offices, as you can see, have now, reopened their services to their customers. If you can look, I see behind me, you have workers, finding their way home from today's work, and then we have a heavy vehicular movement. As a matter of fact, we have traffic congestion on this particular road. I'm currently at Allen Junction, a very busy area in the state, and then you see workers, on the queue, finding their way home, heavy vehicular movements, as well as human movement. So you can tell that the street is visibly different from what it was on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, up until Sunday, that's yesterday. So business have pretty much resumed as usual. I've been speaking with a lot of workers and, of course, business owners. As a matter of fact, I have a business owner here with me, Omar Grace, who have had to shut his, his store since Thursday as a result of the protest, and also fears of a possible violence. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Good evening. I'm Omar Grace by name. Yeah, I'm a brand owner.
So can you tell me, how did it feel for you? Having to shut your business since Thursday, only to resume today?
Actually, since Thursday, business have not been going because no movement. And to me, to just be sincere, to me, is unfair. Protest. We're protesting, you're working, you're protesting. Okay, for that good 4 days, we know what we lost. You understand? Just not going out. We not going out, we know what is affecting. You understand? So it affects us sometimes. But to me, I'm not supporting of protest anymore. So let everybody just go back to his work. At least our president has come outside and spoke to us. So to me, so let everybody go back to his work. So let's see what Mr. President will do for us back.
So before you had to shut your business because as a result of the protest, were you in support of the protest?
Actually, yeah, I'm a Nigeria. Let me be sincere. I'm not supporting in any protest. You understand? But this country, since they have been selling even cup of gari, 1 naira, we have been complaining. And the more we want our country to be more better, things will be expensive. The only thing we just want our government should just do for us is just fuel and food to just calm down. But to me, any other things, hey, we keep it on. It's life.
As a matter of fact, many of the protesters are pretty much asking for the same thing. It's just unfortunate that people like you who earn daily have to, accrue losses as a result of this protest. So how do you think you can, pass your message to the government to reduce the price of food and fuel without having to protest?
Oh, actually, all the protests people have been doing from different states is they really know what people are fighting for. Is food and fuel. She understand? Actually, it's unfair. She understand? Then to just help us, let the fuel come down and the food to come down. So any other things, we are Nigeria, we know how to. She understand? So that's just the. But to me, she understand.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, there you have it. That's Omar Grace there, giving us, decrying the losses that he must have accrued over time in about 4 days. He's a fashion designer, and according to him, it's a business that actually make income on a daily basis. But now he has had to record some losses because pretty much the entire part of Lagos shuts down completely as a result of the protest. But the good thing is that Lagos did not record any form of violence, as we must have recorded during the NSAS protest, and then none of the businesses that were even open during this time was affected by the protest.
All right, thank you so much, Adeshewa Odushoga, for bringing us up to speed regarding protests right there, on the streets of Lagos. Many thanks, Adeshewa. In the meantime, business activities are on standstill now in many areas within the Jos Bukuru metropolis following the 24-hour curfew imposed on the metropolis by Governor Caleb Mofwang amid the ongoing nationwide protests. According to a press statement signed by its Director of Press, Giyang Berry, the curfew became necessary to forestall further breakdown of law and order in the state. News Central's Chizoba Anyanwe quotes the governor as warning those planning to unleash further terror on innocent citizens to desist immediately or face the full wrath of the law. And to unpack this, I'm joined by the Commissioner for Information, Plateau State, and that's Musa Ashams. Good evening, glad to have you join me.
Good evening. I'm glad to be on your program this evening.
The pleasure is all mine. Let me start by asking you, what are the circumstances surrounding the curfew imposed, in Jos?
First of all, we want to thank those that stepped out for peaceful protest, and to tell those that we had a situation whereby peaceful protesters were carrying placards. Then, lo and behold, some miscreants and hoodlums decided to carry clubs, sticks, machete, and other dangerous weapons. And yesterday on the Bauchi Road, Zololo Junction area, they unleashed mayhem on our people. And as a proactive government, we are advised by security agencies to impose a curfew on the Jos Bukuru metropolis. So as we watch activities as they unfold before lifting or relaxing the curfew. So as we speak, there is still curfew imposed on Jos Bukuru metropolis because of the activities of these miscreants. Yesterday, we saw videos and some of us witnessed physically where they were warning business owners to close down shops and join them in the protest today. We've had peaceful atmosphere, peaceful ambience, starting from the first until yesterday, where we had the breach of peace, and the governor decided, based on the advice given by security agencies, to impose a curfew on the city to avert further destruction and of lives and property. So we don't want a situation whereby we will count our losses, then afterwards begin to impose a curfew on the city. That is why, as a proactive government, as a responsible and responsive government, a curfew was imposed on the city to avert any future dastard occurrence.
Well, in as much as you have explained the reason for the curfew being imposed, in that parts of Jos, how about vital, services like emergency response teams, as well as hospitals and also food supply chains? What measures are being put in place to ensure these vital services are provided regardless?
The security apparatus on the plateau are not new to this kind of operations. They know that once you are a service provider, especially essential services, you have access to wherever you're going to. That is why people are advised to walk about with their identification cards. And of course, when they approach them, they allow them to go to these places where they give these services. So it is not shut down for everybody. It is in the interest of the sanity and peace of our state that the curfew is imposed. Other than that, people that offer essential services have access to the main road, to the streets, to their working places. Like I speak with you, I just finished a radio program, and I'm within the vicinity of the radio station, which is some kilometers away from where I live. So there is some level of movement, but it's not for everyone.
When you say, there are some level of movement, but not for everyone, I'm wondering what arrangements have been put in place to cater to people like the elderly or even those having disabilities who need care while this curfew is ongoing?
I don't know which angle you're coming from. We do not have elderly persons or those who are disabled that would like to go about because they will be exposing their lives to risk. And as a government, the curfew is in their best interest because you never can tell where they will be found if we are moving freely. So as a state, their parents, their families, and their neighbors are going to take care of them until the curfew is lifted or relaxed. So basically, those are the arrangements for now. The arrangement for us as a government is the peace and is the peace of the city, is the peaceful coexistence that people are used to, and that is what we want to sustain or even magnify the more. You could see that we had one of the best processions, one of the best protests, but these unscrupulous elements decided to pick up arms and begin to threaten people and begin to unleash mayhem on peace-loving and abiding citizens. So as a government, it is our duty, the onus is on us to make sure that we protect the lives and properties of our citizens, and that's what we do.
Well, I was actually referring to those age grade of people in terms of medical care, but then your response, has answered that. Thank you so much for your perspective on the news. Musa Ashams, Commissioner for Information, Plateau State. Many thanks once again.
Thank you for having me. God bless Plateau State.
You're watching News Central now. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. And to talk about the End Bad Governors protest, it's day 5. Just to get perspective so far, following the presidential address, we're joined by a public affairs analyst, Philip Kachiko. Good evening. Glad to have you join me.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be at your police station.
All right. I'll kick off by asking you, what's your impression of the speech given by the president?
Well, the truth is that there's never been a perfect speech in the whole world. People will always have what they expect in the speech. And some people will look at the speech and say, it has covered everywhere. Some people will bring out some quotes from the speech. Well, I think it's a good start. The speech is a good start, and we can do more.
Let me also, narrow down to the call for dialogue. The president has said that there should be an end to the protests, moving forward, and the need for dialogue, having conversation, and moving the nation forward. Do you feel there should be a window for this, and then voices protesting should pipe down and have a conversation with the government?
You see, there are two key things at the president's speech. First, he said, I've heard you loud and clear. The second one is calling them for dialogue. These are the two key major things for me that will help to pushing the effects of these protests and also make the government to act on their own part to resolve all these issues so that it doesn't come up again.
Okay,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, it's very, very important you call people to dialogue, because in every conflict, at the end of the day, you sit down at the round table to have dialogue to resolve the matter, and that's how wars and unrest gets over.
But would you say the government has so far been effective in communicating with the people? And why do I say so? We have seen before this protest began, there was a notice for the protests, and then it seems as though the people wanted to talk to the government, but the government was sort of unwilling. I refer also to the NLC, Nigerian Labour Congress. You will notice oftentimes they give a notice for strike action. The government, doesn't yield or budge until there is a strike action. Do you feel the government, has a need to review or overhaul its communication process?
You see, I don't understand it from every government, not just this government alone. You see people agitating for certain things, either labor, students, or the people. You always wait for the last minute when they will carry out the strike or when they will carry out the protest. before you call them for dialogue or before you begin to communicate your actions. You know, the issue we have.
Mr. Kachiku.
In this country, like the public are saying in the next generation, our problem started from the 60s. Continue with the military, who year in, year out, see of recent that they handed power to the democratic government. And even the government in power, I don't understand. The communication department has always been issue. And this is why the people don't have trust. They don't have trust because the government does not talk to them. The government does not call them or give them ideas of what they are doing. Mr. President lined out laudable things that they are doing. But you can imagine a lot of people don't know about it. So why should people not agitate? Why should people not protest? I mean, for me, when I heard the debt to revenue ratio from 98% to 68%, that's laudable. So the government can have resources to do projects, but they don't communicate it. And because Mr. President and probably his ministers or the people that work for them and all their predecessors, you know, if they should have communication department from every parastatal ministries and departments, they should communicate to the people. If you don't communicate to the people, how do people know what you are doing? How do people know that, okay, they mentioned that they're giving some 600,000 nano businesses some fund for their businesses. How did they give to those people? How will people know that, oh, some people have been empowered? You gave almost 600 billion to state governors for palliative. What are the palliatives? People are not seeing it. So a lot of good things that you do, you don't communicate. How do people want to know? The student loan, yes, people are hearing about it, but the process, a lot of people don't know. A lot of students also want to have access to those grants. You're not communicating it. And that's where our National Rotation Agency too have failed. Our Ministry of Information has failed. Then the people speaking for the government, all they're interested is to attack when people, not reactionary. It should be proactive. It should be communicating with people. I've always said it. Why should Mr. President wait when there's an issue before he talks? Look at Mr. President in the United States and other places. When he's moving, when he wants to enter his plane, when he wants to enter his car, they're asking him questions. He's telling them his policies. He's telling them the next move.
And that's a fine place to wrap up.
And because you say you want to lead the people.
Time.
So how can you lead without talking to them?
Mr. Kacheko, thank you so much for your submission on the news. We hope indeed the president, is listening and will bridge the communication gap with the people. Thank you so much, Philip Kacheko, public affairs analyst. Many thanks indeed.
My pleasure.
Precious Oroche, a rights activist whose video has been trending since its debut Thursday on News Central TV, following the first day of the hashtag End Bad Governance protests in Lagos, has come out to explain her outburst and reason for labeling the vice president as an idiot during an interview with our correspondent on investigative journalism, Marshal Anthony Onoye.
Since that video came out, a lot of questions has been asked as to why did you choose to refer to the vice president as an idiot?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the vice president is a father of the nation. I'll be assistant father. So you see, we are by default his children. And if he chooses to address we, the children that are protesting as idiots, what is he? Father begets children. Meaning father idiots. But if he did not say that, then it's not valid, it didn't hold water. But if he said it, it's what it is.
The rights activist also confirmed to Marshal Anthony that since appearing on News Central TV News, her life has been threatened.
Your video came out on our station and on social media, on our handle. A lot of questions have been asked as to your safety. And earlier on, I spoke with you and you hinted me that you've gotten some calls. Can you throw some light on that?
Yes, calls, threats. I even perceived my line has been tapped. But I'm used to threats. The states where I identify with those states, you insult the governor, you run out of the states. You will not have an evidence that is threatening you, but trust me, people either by proxy will threaten you. So I'm used to it. I had to run at some point, and even in Abuja, threats, I ran again. I'm in Lagos, and I will still run to Meduguri. Let them come, let's go and Facebook around together. So I'm used to the threats. It's not a new thing. You don't get whether they use the life too. No your worry.
A federal high court in Lagos has ruled in favor of airline operators of Nigeria and 5 other aviation companies, declaring the sale of Nigerian Air Limited to Ethiopian Airlines null and void. Justice Ambrose Lewis Alagao's judgment also halted the establishment of a national carrier, Nigerian Air, by the federal government. The court granted all relief sought by the plaintiffs, except for the 2 billion naira damages claim. The plaintiffs had challenged the bidding and selection processes for the Nigerian Air project, and the court has now set aside the entire process. You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. As the 44th SADC meeting is left with few days to commence in Harare, Zimbabwe's capital, calls to change the venue are getting louder, with South Africa's Democratic Alliance calling on the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, to exercise South Africa's right as a member of SADC for the venue to be urgently moved. The DEA makes this call following multiple reports of yet another state-sponsored clampdown on pro-democracy activists by a paranoid ZANU-PF regime, fearing public protests in the lead-up to the summit. According to the DEA, this action would send a clear message that South Africa, as a member of the SADC, will no longer tolerate the suppression of democratic freedoms on their doorsteps. Independent analyst Mavuto Bamuse joins us now to talk about this. Good evening from here. Glad to have you join me. Okay,
So glad to be here.
All right. Let me start by asking your thoughts on requests by the South Africa Democratic Alliance to call on SADC, to call on the SADC venue to be moved from Zimbabwe. Your thoughts?
Well, the call by the Democratic Alliance should be put in the context of continued human rights violations and the clampdown on activists that continues to take toll in Harare. And this has been going on for quite a number of years, apparently since the year 2000, and especially reaching the peak in the elections in Zimbabwe in 2008, which was very, very disputed. And then throughout the years until last year in 2023, exactly almost 1 year as Harare, as Zimbabwe will be hosting the 44th summit of heads of SADC heads of state. President of Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa, will have been the president of Zimbabwe for 1 year after last year's elections. But these elections have been marred with a lot of controversy, and especially the opposition, the Coalition for Change, the CCC, have become under fire. Activists have become under fire. There have been a lot of violence, including involving the students from the University of Zimbabwe. So, given this context, it really paints a bad picture for SADC to continue using Zimbabwe, to continue using Harare as the venue for such an important and landmark summit. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, the SADC Charter, the SADC Charter talks about the need to uphold democratic values. SADC also upholds human rights values. So it is against that context where I think many would agree with the position by the Democratic Alliance that holding this SADC in Harare, in Zimbabwe, does not occur well with the democratic standards.
Okay, just to quickly find out, having said that, do you think the recent reports of state-sponsored clamps down on pro-democracy activists reflects the overall political climate in Zimbabwe?
It does actually. And like I said earlier on, this is not happening now. It has been happening in the previous elections, even when Robert Mugabe was president. The clampdown on activists, the violence, the violation again on the rights of civil society leaders and opposition leaders has always been happening. Like I said, since the year 2002, the 2008 elections, and then recently in the 2023 elections. So Zimbabwe is continuously is frequently being associated with anti-democratic tendencies.
Well, thank you so much for bringing light to this issue. Movatu Bamusi, independent analyst, many thanks indeed.
Thank you for having me.
You're watching News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. The news continues in East Africa, where hundreds of Somalis joined a rally on Monday against the jihadist group at the site of a deadly beachfront assault in the capital, Mogadishu. A suicide bomber and gunmen attacked the busy Lido beach on Friday evening, killing 37 people and injuring scores more in one of the deadliest strikes in the troubled Horn of Africa country in months. Survivors of Friday's assault described how a suicide bomber blew himself up and then gunmen stormed onto the Indian Ocean beach. Al-Shabaab, which claimed the attack, has been waging a bloody insurgency against Somali's fragile federal government for more than 17 years. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has pledged swift criminal sanctions in response to the far-right riots that erupted across England last week following the murder of 3 children. In an emergency meeting with ministers and police chiefs, including Scotland Yard Commissioner Mark Rowley, the Prime Minister discussed strategies to quell the violence that began in Southport, northwest England on Tuesday. Over the weekend, numerous police officers were injured and many individuals were arrested as rioters clashed with law enforcement, throwing bricks and flares, burning and looting shops, and smashing the windows of cars and homes. And for context, I'm joined by Afia Hagen, our international correspondent. Afia, what's the latest on the rioting in England?
Well, Keir Starmer, as we saw there, has announced a standing army of specialist police officers to tackle the violence that has erupted in mainly English towns and cities. There was some protests in Belfast, which is in Northern Ireland, but this is mainly confined to England. So he has said that criminal justice will be ramped up following the emergency response meeting, which is called COBRA. It's called COBRA because it takes place in Cabinet Office Briefing Room A, and it consists of ministers, police chiefs, policymakers to deal with this crisis. Now, the police say they're working tirelessly to identify people who took part in the disorder, with Yorkshire Police warning people, if you were there, we will find you. Now, today we've had the first defendants in court charged with crimes related to the rioting by people in England, the youngest of them 14 years old, the oldest of them 69 years old. And we've also had travel warnings issued by various countries following the weekend of unrest. So you had Malaysia's foreign ministry publishing an alert yesterday advising Malaysians living in or visiting the UK to stay away from protest areas and remain vigilant. Same warning was in.
Just to quickly chip in there, how about social media? What role has it played in instigating these riots?
Sure, it's played a big part. Just to finish the travel warnings, Nigeria, Kenya, and the United Arab Emirates have issued travel warnings as well. When it comes to social media, this has played a pivotal part in the instigation of these riots. It started because of false information emerging because of the frenzied stabbing attack that took place in Southport last week on Monday, in which 3 young girls died. Now, false information circulated online that the perpetrator of that attack was of Muslim descent, and he was named. It was a false name, and it was a false piece of information that was put out on social media that went viral, that basically caught fire and incited these protests. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has said today that people who share misinformation on social media will be dealt with as well, and also called on the social media companies to have more stringent checks in place and to try and make sure that this type of false information is not spread online.
All right, thank you so much for your perspective, Afia Hagan. And that's all on the news. Let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Nigeria's defense chief has accused protesters flying Russian flag of treason. Court has nullified the sale of a national carrier to Ethiopian Airlines. We also told you that Somalis have protested deadly Al-Shabaab attack. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola. It's bye for now.